My guest on this week's episode of Suds Search is Aaron Levy, Vice President of Paid Search at Tinuiti. Aaron is one of the most popular and influential PPC experts in the world. He is a mainstay on PPC Hero's list of the top 25 PPC experts in the world. He's a talented presenter who has spoken at numerous conferences, including HeroConf, SMX, the Utah DMC, and the Paid Search Association Conference. Aaron's also a terrific blogger who's been published in Search Engine Journal and Search Engine Land. He frequently appears on podcasts and webinars. I caught up with Aaron after a really interesting year for PPC. There were changes to keyword match types and default ad types, and changes at Google and Facebook that impacted audience targeting. Frankly, it was a good time to catch up with someone with Aaron's breadth of knowledge to talk about it all. Aaron manages a huge team at Tinuiti. They work with some of the biggest brands in the world on some of the most complex PPC campaigns anyone can imagine. I'm going to ask Aaron about how to manage a large team and create repeatable processes. Grab something cold to drink and join me for a conversation with Aaron Levy. We'll talk about why you should pay for your brand terms. We'll talk about where PPC is headed next, and I'll chat a little bit about how advertiser behavior will change coming out of COVID. Aaron, welcome to Suds Search. How you doing?
Well, it's been a little bit of a weird day, but I'm doing well. Thanks for having me.
It's great to have you on. I'm going to let you in on something. You are our 100th episode of Suds Search, exactly 100th. So you win the grand prize, and you have a great beer. So you seem like a perfect 100th guest.
You have a great beer.
Show me what you're drinking.
I am drinking plain chicken nuggets, which, according to the label, unfortunately does not contain any actual chicken nuggets. But I'll have to find the description and share it with y'all afterwards. It's a brewery called Stickman, which is out in the burbs of Philadelphia, but they have a little tap room right by my house. But yeah, it's even a gourmand can enjoy a plain chicken nugget sometimes. It might not be their favorite, but it's going to be nice when it shows up. Same with the beer.
Nice, and I agree. We were talking offline about the inverse relationship between the prettiness of the can and the taste of the beer. I think this is almost always right, but you said in this case, not so. And I want to make sure you get credit for that because I think it's spot on. For
yeah, this one's tasty. That theorem was inspired by Clown Shoes Brewery, which, no disrespect to Clown Shoes, but not my favorite flavor. But I love the names.
Awesome. Well, listen, you're obviously recognized all over as one of the top PPC experts in the world. What a year it has been for PPC. Has anything happened that we want to talk about? I wonder.
Everything.
Yeah. So, I feel like I'll just kind of go through some hot button issues, and then we can kind of talk about you guys and your management style and some things that are unique about you. But, like right off the bat, for a pretty long time, we had 4 keyword match types. And I think everyone was pretty happy with that. Like, nobody was really complaining. Then earlier this year, they sort of you describe it better than me, but like they sort of combined modified, broad, and phrase. And now there's only 3 match types. Now I'm reading, as I'm preparing for this, Amy Bishop in Search Engine Journal, there's like updates to keyword matching processes for phrase and broad. I'm still confused why they changed something that everyone liked at the beginning of the year. As we film here it was almost October 2021, where are we with these match types? What can an advertiser do, and what control do we have?
So I've given this feedback to my friends at Google many a times. I think match types have a giant branding problem, for lack of a better word. And I understand why they did this transition, but exact is wider now, and phrase has nothing to do with phrases, and broad is actually more precise. I remember when someone leaked or had an accidental screenshot some time ago. I think it got posted in Search Engine Journal or Search Engine Land or both, of a name of smart matching, which freaked out all the marketers because all of us are scared of everything that Google calls smart 'cause it feels like automation. But that's effectively what broad match is now, where broad match is, I'd almost call it intent match, where they're looking at all sorts of signals besides just language, which is something I'm a huge fan of, because language, you and I could say beer and mean totally different things, so beer's not enough to figure out what we want.
Sure.
So that's kind of what broad match is. Phrase, which is, I guess, fuzzy match, is closer to modified broad of the past, but certainly not quite as effective as it used to be. And then exact is nowhere near exact anymore. So it's all these things are different. And I think to really take advantage of them, you got to kind of break what those words meant in the past, and then look at them as like, okay,
yeah,
pretend that exact and phrase aren't words, and these are e-match P match and B match and look at them as something completely different. And I think that can help a lot of people's understanding versus trying to dive with like, well, it's exact-ish, but sort of not. And maybe there's French in there sometimes.
I know. It's okay. That's a very good way of thinking about it. That will reprogram my brain. I like it. But there's another thing here, which is like so long expanded text ads. I've been doing this long enough to remember when expanded text ads replaced regular text ads, and that was a huge deal. Like everyone was going nuts then. I guess the chronology is, and then RSAs became the default ad type. But I remember, like, Google just recently, they recommended a combination of RSAs and expanded text ads. That was, like, from Google, the best way to do things. I don't know. Starting in 2022, only RSAs. Is this change all that dramatic, really, Aaron, or is this something Google has been kind of going in this direction for some time
So
now?
this is where I pat myself on the back and open delicious chicken nuggets beer and get to drink some because I'm great. I predicted this in a lot of our pitches and a lot of conferences that we did up to about a year ago. They've been going this direction for a while. I don't think this really shocks anyone. I mean, even expanded text ads now are kind of Mad Libs. Like they'll shuffle the headlines around, they'll shuffle the description lines around. They sort of will show one, they sort of won't. If they were to flip the switch today and say all RSAs starting October 1st, should be tomorrow, for recording this, it would be a big problem. They're not ready for prime time yet. But the longer term future and where I anticipate them going is more of we'll stick with Mad Libs. It's kind of controlled Mad Libs. So Google's whole thing is
Right.
simplification in some way, shape, or form. That like you have less buttons to push, but a lot more inputs to tell the robot what to do. So kind of expect that there will be a lot more things like that within RSAs that you can pin a headline to an audience or like serve a certain ad to a geo or this line to a different geo. If/when that comes, these things are going to be amazing. But I think as you read a lot of the information out there and a lot of the complaints and fears are that reporting is pretty limited right now. Optimization is basically just Google likes this one or not. And you kind of have to fish for everything. But I don't think that'll be the case forever.
All right, well, very good, and congratulations on your prediction.
Pass me is so
I am
smart.
absolutely terrible at those things. So here's a question. I wonder if we're a little overly focused on just RSAs versus expanded text ads. What I mean is you wrote an article earlier this year in SEJ about ad formats. There's a lot more than just expanded text ads. There's a lot more than just RSAs. There's things just for hotels. There's shopping ads. There's LSAs. There's map ads. When you start out a project, are you really thinking about sort of a kaleidoscope of ad formats rather than so narrowly focused on RSAs and expanded text ads?
Yeah, I'd actually almost go a step further. And I mean, I know that y'all had a session a couple of weeks ago. I forget the gentleman's name, talking about SEO and paid search alignment. My boss and I have jokingly called it Serpius Maximus because it moves around a lot, it transforms, and there's a lot of parts of it that you don't really know what they are. But so, I mean, thinking about map packs combined with ad units, combined with LSAs, combined with what are probably going to be more feed-based lead gen ads, combined with like the little sponsored knowledge panel things that show up sometimes. It's going to be a bigger picture of looking at the searcher experience as a whole, including ad units, including organic. Just remembering that whatever we can do to get people to the site and to get them to buy the thing we want or fill out the form we want or click on the picture we want, it doesn't really matter where they come from, but it's about the whole broader searcher experience. And even though our teams are probably siloed and they're different skill sets, a person doesn't know that. And so, I mean, the rollout of LSAs is a good example where it was a feed-based ad. And from our perspective, it's wildly different. Oh my God, there's no bidding. I don't really know how to control leads. We have to do insurance licenses. But that's all in mind of making the experience the easiest for the consumer and tinfoil hat keeping people on Google. But by the same token, it was the consumer didn't see a different experience. So us treating it as a different experience, we really had to be careful and just making sure that all the lead funnels went to the same places.
All right, I dig it. Well, here's one other change I wanted to talk to you about that I don't think is going to be controversial. I think both of us are going to like this. It's an effort to move away from last-click attribution to something called data-driven attribution. I think we can all rejoice that last-click attribution is not the default way to do things anymore, that there are better ways to assign attribution. What is data-driven attribution, and why is this a change that I think we're both going to be happy
Yeah,
about?
I'm going to get the name of the statistical modeling wrong, but effectively it's Google trying to figure out if a conversion would have happened without a prior step happening. That's how they weight it.
Got it.
So there's certainly plenty of conspiracy theories about like, oh, Google's just going to take credit for more. Not really. It's kind of just moving food around their plate. But in our world, that's pretty helpful because, as we know, no one just decides to go search for chicken nugget beer and then immediately buy it. It's much more likely that there was stuff that happened beforehand. So last click, of course, only reflects that Aaron walked by the beer store and bought the beer. It doesn't reflect that Aaron is a snot and researches his beer and thinks that funny cans are not delicious. But so the part about this change, it's kind of a big change and kind of a small change at once. So it's a shift to the default, which is nice because that will presumably make conversations easier later on, talking about attribution, dividing credit out, things like that. It's obviously going to be a change for folks who want to have their decisions made easier, saying that like this keyword worked, let's bid more for that one. That was kind of a lie, even though we got used to it for 20 years.
Yeah.
I mean, I certainly have a number of thoughts that data-driven attribution within a single channel isn't great because it just sort of shows what you do within the Google atmosphere. But it's better than nothing, and it's a good start.
All right. Well, if there's anything more contentious than attribution in marketing, it is bidding on branded traffic in paid search. So, like, everybody hates this. I did some research. I found an article that you wrote. You just captured it so well, kind of like the mindset of it. There's like this. The article starts like, should you bid on brand terms in PPC? And then you go yes, but also no, but mostly yes, but not always. It was like the greatest interpretation of it depends I have ever seen. The idea is, man, this stinks. It's just they should really just, if they're looking for my brand, they should just give me an organic result, and I shouldn't have to pay for it. In reality, as somebody who's like working in the trenches, how do you think about paying for branded traffic?
You should spend as little as possible to get as much as possible. And so where I say that is a lot of people view branded search as binary. Like if it has Stickman or plain chicken nuggets in the name, then we got to be there all the time, make sure our impression share is as close to as 100 as possible. That's nice for people that operate on percentage of spend models, for agencies to collect their fees that way, and it's nice for Google, but it doesn't make a whole lot of sense from a consumer or marketing perspective. What we're looking for is, and I'll acknowledge ahead of time as I acknowledge in the article that you shouted out, which thank you for reading, isn't a one-size-fits-all, of course, but you want to think of things that like looking towards intent and what intent you can pull out of language. So, okay, if we know that a person clicked on our competitor's ad and then are searching for our brand term, it's pretty good. We want that person because they're not sure what they want. If someone's been a customer for 10 years and they buy every month, like we don't need to pay for them again. They're going to come back anyway. But so thinking about those things that are, what people would historically call a core brand term, which would be just the brand name or just the URL, spend as little as you can to be there. But when there are things like your brand versus other brands, those sort of things that fall into the middle decision funnel. I mean, I'm personally shopping for a car right now, and so I'm doing a lot of these X versus Y searches. Those aren't branded searches. If I'm searching for Volvo S60 versus Audi S5, which somebody please tell me which I should buy, it's not branded for either one of those. It's me looking for information. And in some cases, we've actually had a lot of success letting go of those terms and giving them to affiliates, giving them to aggregators, because they're not looking for us yet. They will be later. But just reimagining what brand terms are can make those decisions a lot easier. You still should bid on your pure brand term. It's annoying. Everyone hates it. Sometimes there's competitors there, sometimes there's not. And so trying to make that decision is a challenge. But I think the broader focus is to be there but spend as little as you can. You got to play defense, but also play offense.
That makes perfect sense. I think that's the right way to approach it. So I want to abruptly shift gears here to basically just managing a PPC department. If my research is correct, you manage a very large department. I wonder if I could like pick your brain, because that seems like very hard. Whenever I think about this, my brain immediately goes to like processes and procedures for the department. Like what do you feel like keeps you on track when you're trying to manage? My research is right. Correct me if I'm wrong, Aaron, but my research is right. You're close to like 60 people in this department or something like that. What are the most important, internal processes and procedures that have allowed you to scale the department and make you not lose your mind when you're trying to manage?
Actually, my team's closer to about 110 right now, and we're hiring.
Gosh, I got an outdated
if anyone wants jobs. That's all right. But no, I mean, it's the first thing that I'll say is the key to managing a bunch of people is to have good people to manage the other people. And so our philosophy as an agency has always been hire good people and get out of their way. And so to that token, I have a pretty well-structured management team, which is what we've been working on building the most this year, is just making sure that we get the right people in the right seats, making sure that managers have the right amount of time to devote to their people. But by the same token, we actually don't follow like a pyramid structure like you might have at a typical larger agency where it's a account supervisor who manages account managers who manage a coordinator. We don't do that because we tend to find that people get bored working with the same thing over and over again. So we operate a little bit more on a hub and spoke model where there's like little cores of people who report to a manager and then they overlap with different teams. But I think the core, to get back to it, to how I keep track of all of it is number one, I don't. I rely on a lot of people to have a lot of things correct, and that's the nice part about having a team of 110 is that there are people you can take a lot of those roles over from. But effectively, it's kind of like being the coxswain on I was about to say a rowing ship, but a rowboat, where you're telling people to row. I'm pointing the direction and steering. I'm not doing the rowing. And so for these folks, I really want to make sure that they're in the right place, to make sure that we have escalation level experts, because I can't expect 110 people to all be experts on everything paid search. But what we can do is find what we call centers of excellence, where we have one person who's the go-to for LSAs, or we have one person who's the go-to for certain technology, and we have a team who's dedicated to GDA and YouTube. So we can make sure that we always have an answer to whatever question might come up, and give our clients all the support that they may need for whatever initiative they might want, but without putting insane expectations on our team, so we can make sure they work as little as possible.
I love it. And I mean, I think that the other challenge I can think of is just like quality and training. So like you have to ensure over 100 people are doing work to a certain standard. They need to be trained to even do that, to have that expectation. And then you have to have this like quality control process in place. Like all this seems very daunting to me, and you seem very cool and calm. Although we are drinking in the afternoon, so maybe that might explain it. But like, how do you not? How do you ensure the quality of 110 people, some of whom are very new and need to be trained and come on board? Tips and strategies for quality control within the department.
So we have an expectation of mentorship along. Answer two parts of your question separately. So within our team, even though we don't have that direct management pyramid structure, we have an expectation built into our more senior individual contributors that they are expected to teach, they are expected to mentor, they are expected to coach. And we honestly find that people tend to like that a lot more versus being in a pure management pyramid, because that way they get to do the fun parts of management and learn into the coaching part without having to worry about the part that makes a lot of new managers anxious of like, oh God, how do I get bad feedback? But so within that certainly helps in the training process. And then we number one, it engages our senior folks a lot more because they like it, and engages the junior folks a lot more because then they get coached by someone who's not their manager, which gives them a little bit more freedom to ask questions because they're not afraid of how they look. And in turn, along with that, I mean, to the quality control perspective, obviously we have QA processes and sheets in place. We don't make people like fill out a little checkbox for everything, but the idea is that we'll make everyone, take a look at major changes the next day, because if you make a change in the afternoon, find it in the morning, something's wrong, impact is pretty small. And then, of course, we are very happy with our friends robots. So we have a couple of alert scripts set up that will use Zapier and zap it over to a Slack channel, so everyone gets alerted if there's a problem, if an account goes down, if a campaign spikes or stuff like that. So a mix of manual, old-fashioned, hey, does this look right to you, and also some automation to catch stuff before it becomes a problem, so you don't have to scoreboard watch all day long.
Well, makes perfect sense. Well, I wonder if I could bug you for one more prediction. You had your agency actually published a really interesting white paper. It was about Q2 benchmarks, and really a big theme was we're coming out of the pandemic. At that point, it was like money is going to be coming back into play here. Certainly in specific industries more so than others. I wonder if you think you have any predictions. We're about to wrap up Q3 as we're filming this. We'll air this just into Q1 of the next year. So I wonder if you have any predictions on what's going to happen in Q4 as you look at the larger world of PPC and what trends might emerge.
There's going to be a lot of volatility in CPCs. So much of it is going to depend on... we saw this last year, but for a different reason in different industries. So last year, thinking about travel, service businesses, or home improvement, you saw lots of volatility depending on what mandates were in place. And so if people were bored, oh my God, I'm going to go panic buy everything for Home Depot and paint my office, which may or may not be the third color this office has been this year. And then you think about, pent-up demand for travel. The second travel was open, everyone rushed to travel. And so I think there's going to be a lot of that panic buying, but instead of from a services place or things that I can do versus I can't do, it's probably going to be a lot more with shipping and with supply chain. So people are going to run out of stuff. They're going to panic, go to the next retailer. That retailer is going to see success, bid things up until they run out. Go to the next retailer and things are going to be bid up again because the floor is already artificially inflated. Something that we saw last year, you can think of it like the great toilet paper crisis of 2019, or 2020 rather, right. Where you would just go from store to store and you would just buy whatever's there. And so I would frankly expect a little something like that in Q4 that we'll probably see sequential bumps of just random stuff happening based on demand and based on shipping load. I think the other thing is we always talk about, free shipping is kind of a must-have these days, and you want to have it in your ad copy. I think that shipping guarantees will be a huge differentiator, and offers for next day or second day, those usually show up pretty late in the year, like a week left before the shipping cutoff. I think we'll start seeing that as a big offer and a big push from a lot of places starting probably Thanksgiving.
It makes perfect sense. It's going to be an interesting Q4.
Yeah.
Aaron, if your predictions have been good so far, we'll see how this one turns out. But I want to just kind of wrap up here. If people want to get in touch with you or your agency, what's the best way to do that? What's your favorite social media? What's your go-to handle?
On Twitter, I'm Big A, Little A, just like my name, A, and then a little one. Or you can look me up on LinkedIn. Our agency is Tinuiti.com, which a lot of people don't know how to pronounce it, so now you do. But I'd say just going to our site and poking around. I believe our general contact email is just sayhello@tinuiti.com. But of course, feel free to email myself. My email is just first.last@Tinuiti, and I can help direct traffic.
Well, I got to tell you, you rocked our 100th episode. I really appreciate you coming on. I'm going to give you a virtual cheers from Chicago. There's a lot of really good digital marketers out there in Philadelphia. I keep meeting them, and it's there's these little pockets of America where there's a bunch of absolute superstars, but Philadelphia is one of them.
We got a good community here. We'd love to have visitors.
We'll be out there before long, so we'll have to do this in person. For now, I'll sign off. We'll be back next week with another episode of Suds Search.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks, Aaron.